My name is Serena. I'm a stay-at-home wife, living with my husband, just the two of us. My husband Donald was originally my co-worker, and we've been married for 3 years now. Ever since we got married, we've been hoping to have a child, but we haven't been blessed with one yet. But I was happy, except for one thing that has been troubling me since our marriage. The source of my worry was my domicile. In other words, my husband's family. Our apartment is about a 10-minute drive from my husband's family home, and I used to visit there quite often. Donald's older sister, who is 3 years older than him, despite being married and having kids, would hang out at their parents' home almost daily, constantly complaining about her husband and venting about the hardships of parenting. From what Donald told me, his mother has always favored his older sister, and the family has always had an atmosphere of obeying whatever she says. Donald also has a younger sister, but she currently works from home and is usually holed up in her room even when not working. I have hardly seen her since our wedding. In the beginning, both my Emil and Sile were kind to me and treated me nicely, but for some reason their attitudes suddenly changed at some point.
Assuming I was some kind of maid, they'd say, "You're a stay-at-home wife, so you must have a lot of free time, right?"
And would ask me to come to their home to do all the housework while they were enjoying their free time. On top of that, they would criticize the meals I cooked, saying the flavor was bland, they couldn't tell what they were eating, and ultimately saying, "Serena, you're really a bad cook. I feel sorry for Donald having to eat such food every day. I have a professional cooking certification, and Donald always compliments and enjoys what I cooked. And not to be rude, but my Miles' cooking is overly seasoned and salty, and I've never seen my Sale cook. Being secretly concerned about the health of my Emil and Sile's family, I have tried to cook extra dinner for them, packing them into plastic containers. However, they took it as an offense, saying, 'Why do we have to eat the leftovers from your household? We're not in charge of disposing leftovers.' I only ended up pouring oil on the fire. I once asked my seal, 'Is everything okay at home?'
The Sile responded by angrily shouting, "What happens in my home is none of your business."
Ever since then, I've been unable to ask my seal anything. Of course, I didn't go to their home every time they asked me to come. In the beginning, I used to refuse them, saying I have things to do or I would ignore calls from my Emil and Seal. Then my Emil and Seal took an unexpected action.
Saying, "Bearing in mind it's our son's home, isn't it practically ours as well?" They began to come to our apartment without our permission.
They began to come to our apartment without our permission, rummaging around our rooms, taking food from our refrigerator, and spreading all sorts of rumors about us to our neighbors. Afterward, it was quite hard to clear up these misunderstandings with our neighbors.
Fortunately, all our neighbors were kind and would tell me, "You must be having a tough time with your mill. Everyone around here knows you're not a bad person, so don't worry."
Their laughter was my only comfort in those times. At the end of my tether, I decided to discuss this with my husband, Donald. Having experienced his mother and sister's lack of common sense from a young age, Donald immediately visited his parents' home to confront them. However, due to their family structure where women have more power over men and Donald often being away for work, he wasn't able to firmly assert himself.
"Oh, that's just Serena's wild imagination. Young people these days blow everything out of proportion. It makes it look like we're bullying Serena. Donald, you really need to step up."
It seemed that they didn't listen at all. This left Donald quite frustrated, and I decided to stop asking him to stand up for me. I thought it was pointless to argue with those two, but having always been competitive, I couldn't bear to just silently endure this. The only way to sever relations with my Mill and Sil completely would be to cut ties with my in-laws. But they are, after all, Donald's mother and sister. I couldn't possibly ask him to cut off ties with his family. I love my husband, and I absolutely don't want to get a divorce. So I bought a voice recorder from a local electronics store in preparation for the day that would inevitably come. From that day, whenever Mamel and Sil verbally abused me, I decided to record them using the voice recorder. At first I was nervous about whether they would realize I was recording them, but they didn't seem suspicious. Even as I continued living this stressful life, I found a source of joy. That was a novel I stumbled upon. The protagonist of that novel is a female spy sent from a certain country's intelligence agency. It's a story where she marries a man for the purpose of information gathering, but before she can act as a spy, she has to battle the harassment from her husband's mother, which is quite an outrageous plot. It started with an unusual introduction as a spy story, but the scenes of conflict between the DIL and Mill and the relentless harassment became a hot topic. It became such a popular novel that it was decided to be adapted into TV series featuring popular actor and actress. Actually, the reason I bought a voice recorder was because of the influence of this novel. The scene where the protagonist plays back the evidence of her Miles' depravities recorded on the voice recorder in front of her in-laws was truly satisfying. I always drew strength from the positive attitude of this rebellious protagonist. Even if I can't be like the protagonist, someday I'll make my Mill and Sil speechless. With that in mind, I started recording. After that, my Mill and Sil, who didn't know they were being recorded, continued to abuse me verbally. They stopped coming to our apartment because I stopped ignoring calls from my in-laws, but somehow the conversation had shifted to the fact that I couldn't conceive a baby.
I gave birth to my son right after getting married. It's been 3 years and you still can't conceive a baby. Isn't there a problem with you? Oh, maybe you're not meant to be with Donald. That's hilarious.
Honestly, I couldn't believe they were joking about something so delicate. My ML's words made the situation even worse.
By the way, didn't you say you were hospitalized for a long time during your school days? Maybe that's why you're having trouble getting pregnant. Oh dear, I won't be able to see my son's child. I feel like I was unfortunate to have you as my DIL.
My mind went blank and I couldn't hear their conversation anymore. The laughter echoing in the distance made my head ache. That night when I returned home, I had a fever and fell ill. At that moment, I was grateful to see my husband, who was worried about me.
I have this in case something happens to me, I said to myself, holding the voice recorder close to my chest like a protective charm.
It was shortly after that I found out I was pregnant. At the same time, my husband's transfer was decided. My husband was worried about me giving birth in the unfamiliar city, so he said, "You should come here with the baby after you've settled down. I'll live by myself until then. Of course, I'll come back home often." I was grateful for my husband's thoughtfulness. However, Mamel made an outrageous suggestion upon hearing that.
Oh, then why don't you live in this house with us, Serena? It must be tough for you to be alone with a newborn baby.
Upon hearing my and Mael's words, my husband and I froze. My husband desperately said that I couldn't live together. But Mimel not only turned a deaf ear, but she seemed to be too excited about the birth of her grandchild, saying, "How about renovating this storage room? We'll also need a room for the baby in the future." This is no joke. I knew my Mel well. She would undoubtedly force me to do housework. In such an environment, I can't imagine giving birth, let alone raising a child with peace of mind. I might even have my child taken away. My tolerance had reached its limit. Now is the time to use it, I thought. I've endured for this moment. I chose the day of Maya Miles' birthday, when many people would be present, to get my revenge. On my Miles' birthday, not only my Sael, but also my husband's would visit my in-laws' home. I would expose all the verbal abuse I had endured from my Emil and Sael in front of everyone. I was eagerly waiting for the day to come. Finally, it was the day of my Emil's birthday. I put the voice recorder in my bag and visited my in-laws' home with my husband. However, an incident happened. While I was in the bathroom, my Seal noticed the voice recorder and deleted all its contents. I fell down on my knees when I found that out. Apparently, my 5-year-old niece, my Sile's child, accidentally knocked over my bag, and my Mil, who was cleaning it up, found the IC recorder by coincidence. Despite my despair, my Miles' birthday party began. My Mil seemed so happy throughout the celebration, surrounded by many birthday gifts, and my Mil noticed a DVD among the gifts.
Oh, what's this?
The DVD had only "Happy Birthday" written in black marker, and it was unknown who it was from.
Why don't you try playing it?
My Seal said so and received the DVD from my Mel, then pressed the play button on the player. The video played on the TV made the people in the room freeze.
Why do we have to eat the leftovers from your household? we're not in charge of disposing leftovers. By the way, didn't you say you were hospitalized for a long time during your school days? Maybe that's why you're having trouble getting pregnant. Oh dear, I won't be able to see my son's child. I feel like I was unfortunate to have you as my DL.
The cruel acts that my MIL and Sile had done to me in those 3 years were projected on the TV.
My Sil hurriedly tried to stop playing the DVD, but my Phil stopped her, saying, "Just let it play." My Sil obediently stayed in the corner of the room.
Feeling my Mil's face also turned pale. When the DVD finished playing, my Phil started speaking, capturing everyone's attention.
I never imagined it was getting this far. Serena, I'm truly sorry for what you've been through. I deeply apologize.
My Phil apologized to me, and then my husband also apologized to me.
Serena, I'm truly sorry for what my wife has done. I'll have a talk with her later.
And just like that, my Miles' birthday party came to a sudden end, and we were no longer asked to live with my Miel. My Fiel didn't let my Miel and Sil approach me and Daniel after that. We didn't know who the sender of that DVD was at this moment. As my husband and I were about to leave and return home, someone called out to us at the entrance.
Hey Donald, Serena?
When we turned around at the sound of the voice, there was my husband's younger sister. Then she revealed something surprising.
I'm the one who made the DVD. I couldn't stand hearing the hurtful things my mother and sister were saying to you, Serena.
According to my husband, before we got married, my Mel and Sil used to bully her, and it seemed she went through a lot of hardships from a young age. When I became the target of bullying as DIL, she was finally freed from bullying. However, she felt guilty seeing me being mistreated by her mother. And she told me another astonishing fact.
The truth is, I'm actually writing a novel.
It turned out that the novel she mentioned was the popular novel that I'd been a fan of. She told us she wrote the novel based on the bullying she endured from a young age and the verbal abuse I received.
My editor suggested me, why not use everyday experiences or things you've been through as a subject matter? Actually, you, Serena, were the model for the protagonist. I ended up writing it without your permission. I'm sorry.
I felt a strange sensation as the protagonist of the novel was the one who had always cheered me up. My Sil received a significant amount of royalties from the novel and will soon move out to live on her own. My Phil was happy for her. My Sil can no longer casually visit her parents' home as she used to because her husband doesn't let her do that.
Serena, I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you. From now on, I'll do everything in my power to protect you and our future child.
Saying that, my husband gently embraced me. And now I am cherishing each day to give birth to a healthy child.